First of all, thanks for having me on. Excited to be chatting today. My name is Ezekiel Bronfman. I'm the co-founder and CEO of XED Beverages. My partner, Nate Meadow, who's not on the line right now, and I met when we were freshmen at Williams, and we created the concept for our first brand, which is zero sugar, all natural, full flavor canned cocktails in our dorm room in Mission. So it's been about 2.5 years since then, and we've now grown our business to have a couple different brands that we're launching. Sesh, which is our first brand, that brand we initially started mixing in our dorm room, just launched in market February 1st in New York, New Jersey, Ohio, and Illinois.
Yeah, so I think one quick disclaimer for all of our viewers is that I think the first time I heard this idea at Williams, people are like, oh my God, these college kids who are underage are mixing drinks. So I think something that maybe we can discuss actually regarding regulation, that's an interesting sector, is how Nate mentioned that you're actually able to distribute alcohol even though you're not of age, like back when you were actually starting.
So quick note, we are both now 21. When we launched the brand, when we launched the brand in market, we were both 21. And you can be a bartender at 18 in this country. You can serve alcohol at 18. You can't drink. So we were in this kind of weird legal gray zone where everything we were doing was legal. All the licensing was totally above board. We were working with, tons of professional law firms to make sure we were all kosher and everything we were doing. But we couldn't legally try our product. So we were receiving shipments for product that we weren't allowed to try. And it was definitely a funny kind of gray area that we were in for a while. People would ask us, so describe the flavor to us or tell us about the flavor. And we were always in this awkward position of, well, are we supposed to say we haven't tried it now? So it was a little complicated before we turned 21. We're much easier operating the space as 21-year-olds. There are also a lot of, you'd think that it would be like a cool story for people, like, oh, these people are under 21 and working in this space, but really it kind of scared a lot of people in the space, distributors, retailers, even media outlets. They were just scared to cover anything that encouraged underage drinking. And so turning to 21 definitely made a big difference. Yeah.
So I think, actually that's a good segue, is that I wanted to talk about, challenges in the beginning and how challenges are different now. You guys, this is a year later having you back at the summit. I'm kind of curious, so in the beginning, a lot of maybe convincing people, a lot of persuasion. What were some of the other earlier on challenges that you guys had to go through?
Yeah. So, I think the last time we spoke was just around the beginning of COVID, right?
Yeah.
And we were up in the air about what our future plans were. And so I think just the biggest thing that impacted our launch was COVID. We were initially planning to launch in April of last year. We were going to launch just in one market in New Jersey on the Jersey Shore and sort of test out that market, learn from our mistakes, learn from what we were seeing in the market, and use that to raise more money and expand distribution and retail following that summer. And then COVID hit, and we realized we can't launch this brand right now. We have no clue what's going on. Our distributor came to us and said, the world is, think back to what the world was like at the beginning of March.
The world was ending.
Exactly. So we went back to the drawing board, and we were really disappointed. We had done at this point over a year and a half of work to get our brand out onto the market. We were so excited to finally see it in stores and see consumers buying it. But looking back, I think that delay of 9 months was probably the best thing that ever happened to us, because it allowed us to spend 9 months enhancing every single aspect of the business. So we tore down the drinks, completely recreated them. We did 18 more flavor iterations with mixologists and bartenders and sommeliers to make sure the flavors were amazing. We rebranded from Cross to Sesh for our first brand, which made a big difference and just allowed the consumer to understand our brand positioning better. And then we kept the Cross name for our holding company, under which we're going to be launching other brands that fit with our macro trends as well.
Yeah.
And then we hired an amazing team, and we expanded distribution to 4 markets, and we got great retail partners on board. So we were able to hit the ground really, really running when we did finally launch in February, rather than doing a sort of small test launch, which I don't think would have been nearly as successful in New Jersey last year.
Yeah, for sure. Congrats on the launch. I did see some stories about it, so that's really exciting.
Amazing. Hope you ordered some if you're 21.
I will. But yeah, like I was talking to Tucker about it actually. But yeah, I think one thing to comment on is, how do you think your challenges have changed today? So I know, you talked about how you're able to hit the ground running just a month ago, everything is going. And I mean, Nate is on a flight. That's a testament to how busy you guys are. But what are the challenges now? Like, is convincing, other groups still kind of a big, perhaps obstacle, or are you really more concerned about, oh, how are we going to grow? Like, what prospects are you considering?
So I'd say the biggest challenge has really shifted in the initial days, really up until February 1st. Our number one challenge, goal, focus was getting Sesh onto shelves because when we started this business, every person told us the hardest thing for you is going to be to get distribution. And for almost every brand, the hardest part, it makes it really hard to launch a brand because distributors don't want to take you until you're a proven brand, but you can't prove yourself until you have a distributor.
Right,
So
it's really chicken and egg
situation. Yeah. Exactly. And we were very lucky. We worked really hard. And, the first many distributors we spoke to had no interest in us, but we were able to get one who really loved the brand, was a huge supporter. And when that distributor signed on, it sort of opened up the floodgates and a bunch of others got involved as well. And that was a huge first step. But even once we got those distributors on board, we still needed to get it onto retailers' stores and onto their shelves, because even if the distributors have the product, if the stores don't want to buy it and they don't think they're going to sell it, they're not going to take it anyway. So then the focus really shifted to us meeting with as many stores as we could to try to get the product into stores.
Yeah.
And now that kind of getting it onto the shelf has at least been, we always want to grow. We always want more distribution, more retailers, but at least for now we have good penetration. We have good coverage with getting stuff onto shelves, and the focus has completely shifted to getting the product off of the shelves. So getting consumers to go into the stores and buy it so that stores then order more. So the focus has really shifted from getting product out into retail to now getting product out of stores and into consumers' hands.
Yeah, totally. I'm sure it's an exciting time, but I think maybe expanding on that pivotal moment, which was signing on that first initial distributor. How did relationship establishment go? Like, I think as college students, maybe there's even like paralysis in that everyone thinks there's so much to do. And I'm sure there was so much to do, even with a hired team. How did you go about paving that way? Like, did you have mentors and helping you seek, like, this is the first step you should consider? Yeah. What was that aspect like?
So I will say, first of all, to your point of there being so many things to do, if we had sat down when we came up with this idea back in January of 2019 and thought out, okay, in order for this brand to launch, these are the 55 things we're going to have to accomplish over the next few months, we would have thrown that list out, each gone to our separate room, never thought about it again, and been too terrified to pursue the idea.
Sure.
I think the fact that we sort of jumped in head first without really thinking about all of the work in front of us actually put us in a better position to be able to just go forward and get the next day's task done, which led to the next day and led to the next day. And before we knew it, we were really far along in the process. And I think, getting through each day is sort of, you have to have that 360 vision, obviously, to know where you're going and what the long-term plan is. But if you just start, writing out tasks to get done that day, things start happening really, really quickly. And before you know it, you've progressed a really long way. In terms of building the relationships and that side of it, we got very lucky that a lot of those relationships, kind of fell into our lap one way or another through us, working networks, and a lot of it through working the Williams network. One of our board of advisors actually is a graduate of Williams who started a beer company. And he's been very helpful with some intros. We just, cold reached out to him through the Williams network, and he was super, super helpful and really generous with us, which also, kind of inspired us to anytime in the future when someone reaches out to us for advice or guidance, we are more than happy to help in any way we possibly can. But so I'd say that first step, we really called every person we could think of that had any kind of connection whatsoever. And you'd be surprised, like, you call a random person you don't think is gonna be able to help you and you tell them what you're working on, some way or another, they'll either offer some advice, give you someone to reach out to, tell you a friend of theirs who's doing something similar, or something that comes out of that conversation that's worthwhile. And so we probably had 100 conversations in that first month, just where we were sort of figuring out, like, is this something we want to pursue? And if so, how do we want to go about doing it? And one of the people we called was friends with the wife of this distributor and said, hey, let me put you in touch with my friend's husband and see if you guys want to work together. And so we went to his apartment, a very informal meeting. We didn't even have samples of the product yet. We literally just had an idea. And we went and we sat down at this guy in his apartment. And to say that he was welcoming and generous and kind would be the understatement of a century. He was so much more generous than he had to be. And really, we got very lucky that he was a kind person who wanted to support us and liked the vision that we had. And he told us right there on the spot that he would distribute us, which, I mean, we've had probably 50 distribution meetings after that, and not one has gone as well as that first one did.
Yeah, no, for sure.
He really was a huge catalyst to the start of this business.
That's awesome. I think let's have a piece of advice moment here. You know, if somebody is in your shoes back in 2019, what's the first thing that you would tell them?
I would honestly say the first thing to do is start putting together the seed of that network, because all those conversations that we had with anyone we could find a way to get in touch with, and I was looking through LinkedIn, through all of our friends, through literally any way that we could find a way to get in touch with people, all of those, some of them added value at the time. Some are coming to fruition right now, where people are reaching out and saying, oh, by the way, we spoke 2 years ago. I see what you're doing. Can we work together on this? And I really think that without all of that learning that we did, we would be nowhere. We wouldn't have known where to begin in the first place. Yeah,
no, that's awesome. So I think maybe progressing a little bit and thinking about, you know, that whole process during COVID. I think my first question is, what kept you guys going? You know, you had a lot of momentum, and then it's like, you know, the world just kind of slipped beneath you. What kept you guys going? Like, how much was it just like your conviction? Did you have a mentor say that it'd be worth sticking on? What was that?
Yeah. So honestly, you're asking like what, through all the craziness, what kept us motivated to work on the business? And I would say it's almost the other way around. Throughout all the craziness, the business is what kept us sane and what kept us excited about, you know, the future of the world when everything seemed so hopeless. And, you know, I think I was looking back on it recently. I think, you know, I would have had a really hard time, as I think a lot of people did, with quarantine and with the, you know, 9 months of isolation that everybody's gone through. If it weren't for the exciting opportunity that I've been throwing myself into 12 hours a day for the last year. And I really think that having that thing to work on and be passionate about and be excited about is what has gotten me through the pandemic, rather than you know, us having to find motivation to get the business through the pandemic. I will say that we've never wavered, even when the pandemic hit and the world was, you know, completely up in the air. We knew that it was just a matter of time until we would be able to launch the business. And we knew that the fundamental reasons and the fundamental problems we were solving with this business existed, pandemic, no pandemic, or anything else. So we were just trying to find the right way to launch this and navigate, obviously, the complexities of the world.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe diving more into the specifics of Cross specifically, you know, when you decide to keep, let's say, your overarching holding name, you know, what made you push into, oh, you know, I want to do a vertical called Sesh, and then think about how, as an overall company, you can expand in other ways. Like, what kind of gave you that direction? I know it's a blossoming out of COVID moment, but I think if you could dive into the details there.
Yeah. So when we realized we weren't launching because of COVID, we took a step back and we wanted to, as I said, kind of take a look at every aspect of the brand and see what we could improve upon. And one of the things we wanted to improve upon was the name. We always loved the name Crossed. It was really cool, spoke to us, but we also knew that it was just too confusing to pronounce for the vast majority of viewers. There were times when we were pronouncing it Z or Xed or, you know, a bunch of different variations. And we tried to make it very clear, but it wasn't coming across. And so we knew we needed to find a better consumer name for that first brand, which was something that we really wanted to give the best chance to succeed, because we thought it was a huge opportunity, and it's proven to be. And so giving it the name Sesh has really given it a better consumer appeal. Sesh is a cool name. It means a couple of things for us. So first of all, it's short for sessionable, which means low cal, easier to drink. So for us, and low ABV. So for us, these are more sessionable versions of your favorite cocktails. And then a sesh is also just hanging out with your friends or doing any activity with a group of friends. And so, it's a drinking sesh, an interview sesh, a music sesh, whatever you are doing with a group of friends. And so we really wanted this drink to bring people together around a dedicated activity of enjoying a sesh. So that's where the name came from. The reason we kept Crossed as a holding company is because we knew we wanted to do more than launch this one brand. We spent the pandemic building a really, really strong infrastructure, from an amazing team, an amazing executive team, to a great sales team, to great distribution network and retail network, and everything from that to the manufacturing side of the business as well. And so what we realized was it was a great opportunity to launch many other brands under that same portfolio holding company. Take advantage of that executive team, of the production capabilities, of the distribution network, and really see scale by launching other brands under that fit within our total vision of better for you and better tasting and zero compromise. So there are a lot of other things that we want to do. We're working on another brand in the beverage alcohol space that we're going to launch this summer. And then we're also working on a non-alcoholic health and wellness play that will hopefully launch in the fall.
Yeah, that's a master plan right there. I think just wondering about maybe diving into the infrastructure that you talked about, developing that. What was that process like? Did you have to, were there ideas that you guys had to cut that you just, really wanted to invest in, but realized you didn't have the resources, or you're not at the stage yet? Or were there any things that you added on that were a surprise for you?
Yeah, yes to all of that. There are always things that we wish we could do that we just don't have the resources for as a small brand, right? Like, we have one market director, like field sales rep in each of our 4 markets. We wish we could have 5 in each, right? It would be a huge, huge advantage to have more people on the ground. It would also be amazing to have someone dedicated to our direct-to-consumer business, really growing that online, and another person to help on the brand marketing side. As the company grows, hopefully we'll be able to make more hires and fill those roles for sure. So 100% there are things that we wish we could, add to the team that we can't right now. But I think we've also been a little surprised about the amazing quality of talent we have been able to attract to our little startup. We hired an amazing chief operating officer who he was previously leading the entire venture team at Anheuser-Busch, the largest brewer in the world. And before that was leading national accounts for Bacardi USA, one of the largest beverage alcohol companies. And so the fact that he was willing to take a chance on our startup and come help us build out our team and our infrastructure was a huge vote of confidence for us and meant a lot. And I think that was incredibly gratifying, just knowing that he was willing to, his full-time job was investing in companies like ours for Anheuser-Busch. And now he decided. So
he's seen a lot of you.
Exactly. So that was great for sure. And building out the team, I think, is what has allowed us to launch multiple brands. If we had planned to only build out Sesh, we probably would have gone a little more slim on the executive team. We wouldn't have hired such a high-level executive, and we hired a great marketing person as well, which we may not have done if it was just for Sesh. But since we have this whole portfolio that we're trying to build out, it was really important that we have a great team to do that.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a process. Yeah. I think maybe even more granular, I'm curious about kind of the management. So I think I rarely see duo teams in venture and eventual larger corps as well. How has that process been? What is that relationship between you and Nate look like when you guys are discussing ideas? How much, I guess, freedom does each of you have with ideation and kind of eventual decision? What does that look like?
So honestly, this whole process, a lot of people talk about how, you don't start a company with your best friend, can always lead to complicating things. And that's true, right? Like, Nate and I spend so much time together. We get into passionate disagreements about little details, and it certainly is more complicated, but throughout it all, there is no question that this has brought us significantly closer and made us way better friends at every level. And I think we work really, really well together. We understand each of our roles, and we each have different strengths, which complement each other very nicely. So generally, in terms of roles and responsibilities, Nate handles a lot of our financial management, communicates with our accounting team, does a lot of our budgeting and our forecasting. And then he handles things like our internal teams, we're hiring a new market director for one of our states right now. So he's leading the interview process and taking care of a lot of things like that. And then I kind of come in more on the strategic, more on the fundraising, on the innovation side of things. And then our COO, Brian, is leading up most of the sales.
Sure.
And that's kind of the breakdown of responsibilities there. Nate and I generally tend to make decisions together. Almost every big decision we've made together. It's just how we believe in doing business. And if there's anything that we completely disagree on, we work through it and figure it out before we go to any other partner. And we always want to present a united front. So there are obviously times when we don't agree on things, but we work through them and come to an agreement before we go talk to anybody else. And that also doesn't mean we don't have total freedom to kind of explore things each on our own, which we both do. We each have different things we're passionate about, and Nate will run with something and try to find a way to make it work. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't. Sometimes I'll think of something that's an awesome opportunity. Sometimes I'll think of something that seems cool that isn't an opportunity at all, and we'll try to pursue it and it won't work. So I think it's a little bit of teamwork, a little bit of everybody doing things on their own, but so far it's worked well. As we continue to grow, we'll probably have to make it a little more formal and structure it more with everyone. But for now, it's everyone understands their role and it's worked out well for the time being.
Definitely. And is there an anecdote maybe of a time when, you and Nate disagreed specifically about one point and, one of you listened to the other in terms of just going ahead with either idea?
Yeah, I mean, look, when two people disagree, someone has to eventually say okay and go with the other one. And there are times when Nate's the one who concedes, and there are times when I'm the one who concedes. I think that, we're both passionate people, and we can get into a conversation where we're both like, our way is 100% the way to go. And then, we each talk it over, think about it, and come back. And it's more often than not, we end up generally agreeing, which is the right way to go. It has happened specifically on the formulation side. We have slightly different palates, and we like slightly different end results with the drinks. Very, very minor differences. We tried a bunch of different variations, and we actually wanted to go in a slightly different direction on two of the final formulations. So we ended up choosing one of ours, not because one person said it's my way or the highway. We ended up choosing that because we felt that it was generally more palatable to more people, even if it were slightly less authentic. So we wanted to be able to, appeal to more consumers rather than kind of isolating ourselves as a very niche product. But there are merits to both sides. And at the end of the day, we did have to choose one person's opinion and go with it. For
sure. And I think maybe some of us will be curious about how you look in terms of just overall market. I feel like a lot of low calorie drinks have popped up recently. So I think, what is the investor pitch that you're giving to people who are kind of on the fence or, not signed up yet? And what would you say?
So it's a different pitch, obviously, when we're talking to investors, when we're talking to stores, when we're talking to distributors, because we try to tailor that pitch to whomever we're speaking to. But the sort of shortest version is that there are no competitors to us on the market that bridge the gap between the two fastest growing spaces in beverage alcohol, which is number one, canned cocktails, RTD beverages, number two, spike seltzers. And the RTD beverages, canned cocktails are growing exponentially. They're great products, but they're exorbitantly expensive. They have huge number of calories, sugar, and carbs, and they're only distributed at liquor stores. So for a variety of reasons, those products don't solve a consumer need for the audience we were targeting. At the exact same time, you have spike seltzers, which are low cal, low sugar, low carb, but they lack that robust and authentic flavor profile, and they lack an interesting branding, any differentiation, and they don't taste like alcohol. And so people who kind of want that robust flavor profile from the canned cocktails, but want it in that better for you format, and want it in that more affordable format, and want it in a more convenient location, are gravitating towards sesh over either the cocktails or the seltzers.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, wow, the dichotomy of markets. I guess maybe you can leave us with some final comments on, maybe how the Williams experience has helped shape part of this. I mean, aside from having the magical moment where you met your co-founder, was there something about the culture? Was there something about, I don't know, a specific moment that, ever contributed to the whole fruitful present that you have today?
Yeah, no, I do think that, Williams is certainly not the school you think of when you think like, I'm going to go and start a company while I'm in college, right? Like, I don't think Williams would be happy with the fact that we took a leave of absence and are working on this business full time. I think they would have preferred us graduate Williams and then start the business. Mm-hmm. But I think in reality, the way of living and learning at Williams very greatly contributed to what we're doing, in the sense that it allowed us the freedom to sort of explore what we were interested in and really think about things deeply, rather than mechanically like answer multiple choice tests all the time. Mm-hmm. And part of that process, when you're really starting to think critically and think about who you want to be and what you want to do, is thinking about things like this, and gave us the opportunity to be free in that. By the way, also the fact that we are in Western Massachusetts and not New York City or Boston or LA, I think also contributed to it. And there were no distractions. We had plenty of time outside of our classes to figure out what we wanted to be doing. And in that spare time, we tried to be productive. We had a bunch of different business ideas, but it wasn't until we stumbled on this one that we really, really dove into something head first and realized that we had a huge opportunity. I think that the freedom, the flexibility, the creative license that Williams provides all played a big piece of that.